Hello everyone. In today's demonstration, we're going to be demonstrating one of the new project templates available in Simple GIS Client. And the particular project template that we're going to be talking about is this address mapping project template. Now this particular template simply provides guidance for a user to be able to import data from an Excel file or a CSV file where they may not have latitude, longitude coordinate information, but they have street address information. And this template will help them walk them through the process of importing this data using one of the Geocoder services available in Simple GIS Client to create a new shapefile layer to map those points on a map. So to begin with, when you launch Simple GIS Client, of course, if you go to create a new project, you'll come to this new project screen where you have the set of templates available for you to choose from. And the particular template that we're discussing is this address mapping project template. It's the third tile from the left. And as I click on this template, of course, it gives you a little bit more description information. But to start creating a new project using this template, I simply double click on this tile. And the first thing it'll do is create a new Simple GIS client project file, and I'll get a dialog box that appears, and it's going to ask me first of all whether I'd like to go ahead and add base map data or a base map layer to my map. Now you don't have to add a base map. I could just simply click this no thanks, just start with an empty map. If I just wanted an empty map to start with, and I'll add my base map later or add my own data layers later. Or I could just click on this, I would like to add a base map layer, and this will bring up the dialog box with a list of some pre-configured base maps in Simple GIS Client that you could choose from to load into your map. Now most of these are based on freely available third-party web mapping services such as the USGS service, the USDA for some of the imagery. It could even be some of the web mapping services from NOAA for weather radar, warnings, what have you. And then we have Stamen tiles as well as OpenStreetMap data available. So for this particular demonstration today, I'm going to go ahead and select the OpenStreetMap just by double clicking on its tile. And that's going to add that as a layer into my map, into my background. And then it's going to give me a new dialog box for me to select my geocoding options. Now at this point, all I need to do is select what geocoding service I want to use to perform this operation. And I have two choices here. It's the U.S. Census Geocoder API service, which is a free service from the U.S. Census Bureau. And again, all of this only supports U.S. street addresses. But this service allows us through a web API to pass the street address information, and if the U.S. Census Geocoder service finds a acceptable match, it'll pass back the latitude longitude for that street address. Some of the advantages for this service is that it does not require any data download, so you can use it just right away. However, it does require an internet connection, so you have to be online in order to be able to use this service. The other option you have is using a geocoding database that has been compiled by Simple GIS. And if you click on this option, this does require data download. So it is a fairly large database, so that's one of the cons with it is that it does require a one-time data download, and it's about a 5 gigabyte data set. Some of the advantages with it is you may get a better address match with it in some instances, as it is composed of data from the U.S. Census Bureau as well as some other data sources. The other advantage too is that it can be used completely offline. So once you complete the one-time download on it, you can use it over and over again, and you can use it completely offline. So you wouldn't have to be online to do the download, but once that's complete, you could use this in the field or completely disconnect it. For today's demonstration, since I have not yet downloaded the Simple GIS Geocode database on this machine that I'm doing this demonstration on, I'm going to use the U.S. Census Geocoder API service. And I will say, if you had downloaded the Simple GIS Geocode database, this option would tell you that it had detected that you had downloaded. So in this case, it knows that it has not been downloaded on this particular machine, and hence it shows me the note that it does require download. But for that very reason, for today's demonstration, we're just going to use the U.S. Census Geocoder API service. The rest of the processes all work exactly the same, whether you're using either Geocode service. So once I've made that selection, my next option would be to specify the Excel or CSV file to import. So as I click on this box, my screen changes, and it's just telling me now to select my Excel or CSV file to import. So I'm going to import the Excel or CSV file by clicking this button. I get this new file dialog box that comes up, and at this point I would simply select the Excel spreadsheet that I'm wanting to import. If it was a CSV file that I was looking for, I would come to the bottom of this file selection dialog box, and under the files of type filter, I would just change this using the drop down to CSV files. But as I said, for today's demonstration, we are going to be using an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to change this back to Excel files. And the particular spreadsheet I'm going to be using is called My Addresses. And so I'm just going to double click on this file. And then the first thing that it's going to want me to confirm is which worksheet in the spreadsheet contains the street address information. So anyone that's familiar with Excel spreadsheets knows that an Excel spreadsheet file can contain multiple worksheets. So I just need to specify which worksheet contains the data that I'm wanting to import. In my particular case, as I click on this drop down, I have a worksheet called My Customers, which contains the data that I'm wanting to import. So I'm going to select that worksheet. I will click Apply. And now at this point, it's also wanting me to confirm if the first row contains field names. So it's really just asking, is the data in your spreadsheet at the top of the data, the columns, does it have a column heading? And so this would be like a corresponding to a field name in a table. And it does. In my particular case, I do have column headings. And so I'm going to select yes. And now I get a new dialog box asking me to specify which fields contains my street address information. If you'll notice, it's broken out. It has address fields. So this is the actual street address. This is where you specify which field contains the street address information, absent any city, state, or zip code. And then there are separate boxes for city field, state field, and zip code. If you'll also notice the note at the top of the dialog box, it's telling us that it has detected, since we have selected that we're using the Census Geocoder service. And so to use this service, you must specify at a minimum a city and a state field, or alternatively, you could just specify the zip code. In our particular case, for the data set I have here, I have all three. I have city, state, and zip code, so I'm going to use all three of those. But at a minimum, I would need a city and state, or alternatively, a postal code with the street address. And the way you would specify this is in the same order that you would write the address. So what I mean by that, in my data set here, I have the address information that's broken out into three separate columns. I have a number column, which is just the street address number. And then I have a street column, which is the street name. And then I have a unit column, which is the unit number or an apartment number. So I need to specify these in the order as if I was writing the address. And so what I mean by that, I would need to specify the street number first, since that's what I would write first when writing the address. And so to do that, I select the column that I'm wanting to add into my address fields. And then I use this button with the two arrows pointing to the right towards the address fields. And I just simply click that button. And it's going to move whatever column I have selected under address fields, or under available fields, here, into my address fields. So as I click that, as I have number selected, you see that it has moved number over into my address fields. Now I need to specify the next field that contains my street name. And so that would be the street column here. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I see that it has now added it underneath the number. And again, this is the order of the address. So it would be the address number, street name, and then finally unit number. And if I made a mistake and I needed to remove a field out of this address fields, I can simply click on the field and then just click on the button next to it with the arrows pointing back to the left, and that will remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and add it back since that wasn't a mistake. And now I'm going to specify similarly my city field, state field, and zip code. So I'm going to select my city column. And now I'm going to use the arrows pointing to the right next to the city field to move it into the city field. I'll do the same thing for the state. And then for my zip code or postcode, in this case I have this postcode column which represents a zip code. And I'll specify that. And then the final step is simply specify the new file name for the shapefile to store the results. Now, for those that may not be familiar, a shapefile is an industry standard GIS file format for storing geometry and attribute data, and that's what this process will create and add as a new layer to my map. So I'm going to specify it by clicking on this button here with the ellipses, and then I'm going to go to the particular area that I want to create the new shapefile. And now I need to specify a file name for my new shapefile. If I wanted to overwrite an existing shapefile, as I can see I already have several loaded in this particular location, I can simply double click on it to overwrite an existing shapefile. But I'm going to go ahead and add a new file name that'll create a new shapefile. I'll click Save, and I see now that it has filled out here the full path and file name for my new shapefile, and now I'll simply click Apply. And now I get this progress dialog box that comes up, and this is just showing the progress of the geocoding. Right now it's telling me I have submitted 249 records, and that's gone to the U.S. Census API service, and it was waiting for a reply. It had now received the reply. And of the 249 records submitted, the U.S. Census Geocode service found matches for 181 of the street addresses for a match percentage of nearly 73%. And then listed below here are all the addresses it could not find a match for. Now you can reconcile these if you edited any of these addresses. You could change the address name, you could change any of the street address if you saw an obvious error and needed to correct it, and then you could retry the address match. And if it found that particular address, it would show that as a marker on your map, and then you could accept that as an acceptable match that would then get loaded into your shapefile that it's creating. In this particular case, it still didn't. The other option you could do is if let's say you just wanted to get into the city, you could do a city match where it would match on the city name. And again, if it found a match, it would apply that on the map. Let me just zoom in on my map. I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in on my map just to show you where it's placing those markers. And if you like that, then you could accept that match again, or you could do a zip code match if you wanted to try and get to the zip code. Or as a last resort, if you knew where the location was, you could always just click Select on Map. But once you have a selection that you're happy with, let's say I was happy with this location and I wanted to accept that for this particular record, I could click on Accept Match. It would remove it from this list and it would add it to that shapefile layer. Now, as I dismiss this dialog box, as I go through this, and let's say I'm done with this for now, I can always come back to this if I wanted to revisit this list later. If I didn't work through them all here, I can always come back and revisit this. For the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this for now. And as I do, I see that it's added my new shapefile as a new layer to my map, and I see all of the points that it mapped here as these blue markers on the map, as evidenced by the legend in my shapefile here. If I had another Excel or CSV file I wanted to import, I could just click on Import Excel or CSV file again and repeat the process. Once I'm finished, I just simply click the Finish on this dialog box. And now I can work in this map just like I could with any other project in Simple GIS. Also, please note that you don't have to use the address project template to import data from Excel or CSV files using the Geocode service. You can always do that from any Simple GIS client project by coming here to the upper left corner of the map window. There's a set of tool buttons here, and there's a drop down arrow next to it. This is kind of the layer management tool set. And if I click on this tool button, I see I have an option here. This is actually the second one in the list. It says create new point layer from street address or zip codes. So I could always come here, click on this menu option, and then I would go through the same process we just did, where I would select the spreadsheet, tell it what fields contains the street address information, and then it would go ahead and import that into a new shapefile as well. So you can always do that from any Simple GIS client project. I also mentioned, I did want to make mention that in the shapefile data that it imports, it contains all of the attribute data from your Excel spreadsheet. So if you were to click on a particular point location using the view feature data for your shapefile, so I make my shapefile the active layer, click on this view feature data tool, and click at the base of one of these points. In this case, I have several points that it found in that general vicinity, so I would need to select the feature that I'm interested in. So you'll see this is a list of records it found, so it found 3 records. And as I click on a record, it gives you the data about that record here below. So here's all the information about it. And so I just click on the specific record, and if I click OK, it brings up and shows you all the attribute data, including the latitude, longitude coordinate for that point that it mapped for that street address. The other thing too is I had made mention is you can always go back to your address unmatches and work on them. So to do that, you would just make your shapefile that contains your address points that we just imported as your active layer, and then go to the Geocoding menu. And on the Geocoding drop down, about midway down, you see a menu item called Process Address Mismatches. And if you click on that particular menu option, you'll get a file selection dialog box that comes up. And what you're going to look for is go to the folder. It's the same folder that contains the shapefile that we created to hold these points, and what you want to look for is a file that has the same file name as the shapefile, but it has a no match tagged on it as the file extension. And this contains all of the non-matches on the addresses. So as I double click to select this file, you see I get this dialog box again that has all of the list of those no matches that I could then work on. So again, I could select one of these, and let's say I want to do a zip code match on this particular one. As I do that, let's see, yes, it placed a marker here, kind of at the center of that zip code, and then if I want it to accept that, I'm going to see it remove this record out of this list, and you should see a blue marker appear where this red marker is. So I'm going to do accept match. And in fact, you saw it just removed from the list, so now it's out of this no match list, and there's a blue marker indicating that it added it into my shapefile at that location. So I'll dismiss this again for now. The other thing too is you could export this data back out to an Excel spreadsheet if you wanted to, now that you have this with the corresponding latitude longitude coordinate. And so to do that, probably the easiest way is just come up here. You could create a report by selecting this as your layer, come up to reports, and you could run a layer attribute report, which will create an Excel spreadsheet. And when you select to run this report, it'll ask you to select the file, the shapefile that you're wanting to run the report on. So what it's looking at is all the layers in your current map, and it's just picking out all of the shapefiles or what we call event layers. So this is another type of layer in simple GIS. But essentially any layers that has attribute data. So you would select the layer, you could give a title for your report if you wanted to, and then you can run the report based upon a subset of features. So if you only wanted to run it on a certain set of features out of your map, you can select the features by clicking on this tool and dragging a box around the features that you want it to select. So I wanted these over here on the right. I just drag a box, see how they turn red. Or you could run a specific query to select certain features that you want it to create a report on. However you want it on all features, just select all features. You could click on that. And then when you're done, you just run report. What you're going to do is give a file name for your report. And click Save. It's going to generate it, and then it's going to open up Excel and show you all of that data. So that's just a way to get, if you needed to get this back out to Excel, there's an easy way to do that with a corresponding latitude, longitude coordinate. And so that concludes today's tutorial. If you like these, please click on the subscribe button in this video. Also, I encourage you to visit our website. That website address is simplegissoftware.com. It's all one word, and it's also found in the description of this video. And if you visit our website, you can go to our Contact Us page, leave comments, ask any questions, and we'll be sure to try and respond. Or you're encouraged as well to leave comments in this video. Thank you.